Hey everybody, and happy Monday. Today we are talking about the hallmarks of healthy relationships. All of our relationships, regardless of what type, have a lot of common threads. Things might look different based on the kind of relationship, whether it's a relationship with a significant other, or a friend, or a classmate, or roommate, or neighbor, or sibling, or parent, or acquaintance, or coworker, whatever it is. The way these things play out and the way our relationships as a whole might look will be really different. Of course, we interact with different people in different ways, but there are some things that are common threads among all kinds of relationships. And if we can master these in one type of relationship, then we can apply it to all of them and we can have healthier relationships in every area of our personal and business lives. And I think we all want that, right? We all want to have healthy, vibrant relationships, and that starts with us. So today let's talk about what we can do to make our relationships healthier, to start healthier relationships, and to evaluate whether the relationships that we currently have are in a healthy place, or maybe if they're not, that we can identify the ways that they can become healthier, because there's always a way to improve, there's always room for growth, there are always things that we can be working on. So I'm just going to jump right in with the top tips, the hallmarks of healthy relationships. Number one is honesty. It's so important that we communicate the truth, the things that we're really feeling and thinking. And this doesn't mean that we have to be cold or so direct that we're hurting other people's feelings. It doesn't mean that we don't have any kind of courtesy or respect. It just means that we're choosing to tell the truth even when it's hard, because sometimes telling the truth is really hard. Sometimes it would be easier to say, oh, I don't know, or I don't care, or that doesn't really matter, or sure, we can do that, um, or just kind of pretend that things aren't wrong when they are. But that doesn't resolve anything, right? And if we're continually brushing things under the rug or pretending that there's not a problem or a conflict or even a slight irritation, then nothing's going to be resolved, and it's only going to grow, and it's going to get bigger, and it's going to become more and more difficult to try to resolve. So we need to be honest. We need to tell people what's going on. We need to share our opinions in a respectful, kind, considerate way. And that can look like saying, I feel hurt because you said this. And I know you probably didn't mean for it to come out that way, but this is how I heard it and it impacted me. And can we talk about that? Or it could look like, hey, I have an idea for this project. I think it would actually be better or more effective if we looked at it this way. What do you think? Just presenting your ideas and your feelings, because they're valuable and you deserve to be in positions and relationships in which you can contribute your thoughts and your feelings without feeling afraid of how they're going to be received. So be honest in your relationships. And number two is conflict resolution. We need to be able to resolve conflicts with people. We can't be trying to live in relationship with people that we're walking on eggshells around. Because if we're afraid of how they're going to react if we bring something up, then we're going to be living in fear, and we're going to be hiding things and brushing things under the rug. We're going to learn, live to resent them, and nothing's going to improve. Nothing's going to get better. We might even get walked over more. So we need to be taking steps to resolve conflict with people, and that goes for us when we're being the instigators of conflict too, right? We need to be considerate of other people's opinions and stances on things. We need to listen to people instead of just trying to hear our own voice all the time or always have the last word. We need to try to find common ground. We need to be willing to sit down with someone and have a conversation about what's going wrong, not blaming them for things, not bringing up past hurts and transgressions, not fighting in public, not yelling, not starting a conversation or an argument really late at night or when we're really tired or really emotional or any other situation in which it's not ideal to have a calm adult conversation about the issue at hand. We need to learn to resolve conflict well, and I'm going to be talking about that more later this month. But I just wanted to get some of those ideas out there, that it's important to not fight in public because that doesn't help. You just start making a scene and it escalates. It's important to listen to the other person. It's important to prioritize the relationship over the argument because sometimes there's not a winner. Actually, often there's not a winner, right? So if you're fighting to win the argument, you're not fighting for the relationship. Whereas if you're fighting for the relationship, the argument doesn't matter as much. Whoever quote unquote wins the argument doesn't really win anything. But if you're both fighting to find the best thing for that relationship, whether it's a personal relationship or a business relationship, or whether it's not even a close relationship at all, but you just spend time with this person, you can't really get away from them in certain environments, whatever it is, you have to learn to be together. And that means that you have to put the relationship first. So remember that when you're trying to resolve conflict with people. And again, going back to number one, be honest about how you feel, but also don't blame people. Take responsibility for what's yours and try to come into it with some perspective and be open to the things that they have to say. And then number three, I'm losing track of how many numbers I have here. Number three is humor. Humor can just dissolve stress and tension like you wouldn't believe unless you've experienced it. Moments can be so stressful, so frustrating. You can just be absorbed in a problem and be making a mountain out of a molehill, or you can be facing like a real mountain of a problem. And then someone comes in with a perfectly timed joke, and you laugh and laugh and laugh, and you release that stress, and then you can go back and you can address the problem and solve it because you released that stress, that burden that you were carrying. And you can't do that, at least not very well, and definitely not that quickly, without humor. And it's so important to be able to laugh together. So find some YouTube videos that are funny, share some memes around, share a funny joke that you heard from a 3-year-old because they're hilarious. Find whatever you think is funny and share it. Be a source of encouragement and joy and laughter because we need so much more of that in the world, right? You can never have too much of that. Obviously, it's, in certain contexts, there are not always appropriate moments for that kind of humor. Like a business meeting, you probably don't want to be sharing a meme that doesn't really fit, that detracts from the goal of the meeting. But in interpersonal relationships, having a source of humor that you both find funny is awesome, like bonding moment. You can find that common ground and build from there. And humor is a wonderful unifier. There are so many things that everyone finds funny. So, or most people anyway. So find things that you and other people in your life can laugh about together. You will become better friends for it, and you'll probably argue less and be less stressful and have a better working relationship or personal relationship or whatever it is, and you'll both be happier. So it's just a win all around. So find things that you guys can laugh about together. Number 4 is to try new things. And this is going to look different in different types of relationships, but you could try a new hobby, you could try a new exercise class, you could try a new recipe, you could go to a new city, you could explore your own city, you could even just try a different way of doing something at work, a different method, a different process, a different kind of software or programming. You could do any number of things, but just try mixing things up because it brings in variety, it brings in newness and new perspective, and that can just freshen things up, bring in a nice like wave of change, and it's always good to continually be growing and challenging yourself. And that's a good way to do it with other people, is to try new things. And then you get to experience new things together, and then you can look back on them later and be like, hey, remember when we did that thing? That was really fun. So it's also a bonding moment for people, which is great. And then the last tip, number 5, is service. Our relationships really should come back to service. Yes, we're in relationships with peers that aren't necessarily very obviously designed around service, as opposed to relationships with parents or bosses, where they're clearly the authorities over us, right? We don't like exist to serve them necessarily, but we know our role involves supporting them and listening to the directions that they give us. whereas our peer relationships don't make that as clear. But that doesn't mean that we can't serve people. And it doesn't even have to be complicated. We can open doors for people. We can pick up the tab. We can pay for the person behind us in the drive-through lane. They're not going to know what happened, and it's going to be fabulous. We can let someone go in front of us in the checkout line. We can pick something up that someone else dropped. Like, it really doesn't have to be complicated, you guys, but choosing to look for opportunities to serve people puts us in a position of loving them already. It means that we're caring about them enough to look for ways that we can help them and love them and serve them. And they're going to be grateful for it, even if they don't express it, even if they don't readily acknowledge it. They're grateful for it. And it's just going to foster that relationship. It's going to show them that we care about more than just ourselves, which is so important in every kind of relationship. Because when we don't care about other people, that's when relationships start to break down. When we enter into a relationship thinking, what can I get out of this? We're already starting off on the wrong foot. We need to think about what we can contribute, what we can give, what we can bring to the table, and how we can serve. Because that's actually how we get the most out of relationships in return, provided that they're healthy and not like entirely one-sided and toxic, right? But leading with service, leading with kindness and love is how we are going to make our relationships as healthy as they can be, and encouraging other people through that example. Because when you lead with love and service, other people are going to feel compelled to return that favor. So lead by example, show other people that you care by loving and serving them, and you'll find that your relationships can be transformed. So if your existing relationships exhibit these qualities, that's fantastic. They're probably really healthy. If they don't exhibit these qualities, then you have some helpful tips for how you can grow. You can talk to your people about these things. You can work on these things yourself. You can seek out relationships with people who are better at these things and learn from them, and then apply it to some of your other relationships. And you can seek to go forward building new relationships with these qualities right off the bat. So again, just to recap, number 1 is honesty. Number 2 is conflict resolution. Number 3 is humor. Number 4 is trying new things. And number 5 is service. So I would love to hear what tip you guys thought was most helpful. You can comment below. And if you want any more resources about healthy relationships, you can check out the Joy and Full Living community, where we've been talking about healthy relationships for the month of August, and we will continue until September. I would love to see you guys there and provide more encouragement and resources for you guys there. Okay, I hope you have a fabulous rest of your day, and I will talk to you again soon. Bye.